The world's largest chewing gum company started out selling soap. The jewelry brand behind more engagement rings than almost any other name in America started out selling stationery. And the messaging app sitting on your phone right now was built to keep a video game servers from crashing. None of these companies knew what they actually were at the start. That should unsettle you a little, and it should also make you feel better. Because the idea you have right now, the one that feels shaky, half-formed, maybe even a little embarrassing, is closer to how most massive fortunes actually begin than the tidy origin stories companies tell afterward. 10 businesses, 10 founders who were confidently, sometimes catastrophically wrong about what they were building. Here is what they actually started as and how the wrong idea became the right one. In 1865, a Finnish mining engineer named Frederick Idestam built a wood pulp mill on the banks of a river in Tampere, Finland. Ground wood pulp for paper, nothing more. He named the company after the river town where he opened his second mill, Nokia. For over a century, Nokia made paper, then rubber boots, then cables. The mobile phones that would make it briefly the most valuable brand on Earth did not exist yet, not even as an idea. Idestam was not building the future of communication. He was building paper. In 1850, 3 rival freight men in Buffalo, New York, Henry Wells, William Fargo, and John Butterfield, merged their delivery businesses into one company built to move cash, gold, and parcels by rail and stagecoach. They called it American Express. For nearly 70 years, hauling freight was the entire business. The credit card, the thing that made the name recognizable in almost every wallet in America, did not exist yet and would not exist for another century. In 1837, Charles Louis Tiffany opened a store on Broadway in New York selling stationery and what he called fancy goods. In its first 3 days, the shop took in $4.38. Fine jewelry was not the focus. It was a side category, one product line among many, until Tiffany noticed which items his wealthiest customers actually kept coming back for. In 1891, William Wrigley Jr. arrived in Chicago with $32 and a plan to sell scouring soap. To move more soap, he started giving away free baking powder as a bonus. The baking powder began outselling the soap, so he switched to selling baking powder and started giving away 2 packs of chewing gum with every can as a bonus for that. The gum outsold the baking powder too. Wrigley eventually dropped the soap and the baking powder entirely and built one of the largest fortunes in American business on the free giveaway nobody asked him to sell. In 1889, a small shop opened in Kyoto, Japan, making handmade Hanafuda playing cards, brightly colored, entirely analog, built from mulberry bark paper. Its name was Nintendo. But here's what makes this stranger. The instinct to stumble into your real business did not end with the intent. It just changed costumes. In 1938, in Daegu, Korea, a merchant named Lee Byung-chul opened a small trading company with roughly 40 employees, exporting dried fish, local produce, and noodles to China. He called it Samsung Korean for 3 stars. Semiconductors and smartphones were not on his mind. Noodles were. In 1927, a young couple named Jay Shah, Willard and Alice Marriott, opened a 9-stool root beer stand in Washington, D.C., licensed from a root beer maker called A&W. It sold root beer and only root beer until the city's cold winters killed foot traffic and forced them to add barbecue and tamales just to survive the season. That root beer stand became Marriott. In 1955, 2 struggling New England textile firms, one tracing back to 1839, merged into a single company that spun and wove cotton and rayon. It was called Berkshire Hathaway, and for decades it made cloth, not investments, until a young investor named Warren Buffett bought the broken textile mill instead of the insurance and utility businesses that would actually build his fortune. In 2004, a programmer named Tobias Lutke wanted to sell snowboards online. The e-commerce software available to him was clunky, so he built his own. Other merchants asked to license the software instead of the boards. He renamed the company Shopify 2 years later and quietly stopped selling snowboards altogether. And in 2009, a game studio called Tiny Speck spent years and more than $15 million in venture funding building a browser game called Glitch. a colorful, combat-free world about foraging and crafting. The game shut down in 2012. You remind the kamp the game i slak ut den developer mentalperi how out for you women can. It is not even really an accident. Not in the way people mean when they say a company happened to succeed. Every single one of these founders was paying close attention to what customers actually did, not what the founder had planned for them to do. Tiffany noticed which shelf emptied first. Wrigley noticed which bonus item people asked for by name. The glitch developers noticed which internal tool the team refused to stop using, even as the game itself was dying around it. That is a different skill than having a good idea. It is the willingness to let a bad idea die in public and follow the data to whatever the market is actually asking for, even when that answer contradicts the plan already pitched to investors or the job a founder already promised a parent he would do. You can find the same instinct in businesses far more recent than any of these 10. PayPal began as Confinity, a company building security software for Palm Pilots, whose flagship feature let two people beam money to each other through an infrared port. Almost nobody used the beaming feature. Nearly everybody wanted the payment underneath it, sent by email instead, and that observation is the entire reason PayPal exists. Instagram started as Bourbon, a location check-in app cluttered with features, planning to shut down after peaking at barely 100 users. Its founders noticed the one feature people actually used was sharing photos, stripped away everything else, and launched Instagram 3 months later. For anyone evaluating a company, a founder, or even your own plan, the original pitch is almost never the real filter. The real filter is what happens in the first 18 to 36 months, when the founder either defends a dying idea out of pride or watches closely enough to notice the accident happening right in front of them. None of these pivots happened because business was going well. Wrigley's soap sales were sliding before the baking powder bonus ever appeared. Nokia's original paper and rubber businesses were battered by wartime shortages and foreign competition through much of the 20th century, forcing decade after decade of desperate diversification into cables, then electronics, long before phones. Berkshire Hathaway's textile mills were losing money against cheaper overseas competition, closing plant after plant through the 1950s and 60s, which is exactly why its stock was cheap enough for Buffett to buy in the first place. Tiny Speck spent years and millions in venture funding on Glitch, and it still failed. The game shut down completely in December of 2012. If the internal chat tool had not existed, or if the founders had shut the whole company down out of frustration instead of looking one more time at what they had actually built, Slack simply does not exist. The original business, in almost every one of these stories, had to fail, or come close enough to failing, before anyone was desperate enough to notice the accident sitting right next to it. That is the uncomfortable part of this pattern. In sitting, that is the accident sitting right next to it. That is the ADAX to it. It rarely shows up as a flash of insight. It shows up as a company running out of road, and a founder too stubborn or too broke to walk away without looking one more time at what was actually working. The modern version of this happens constantly and mostly invisibly. Somewhere right now, a company you have never heard of is failing at the thing its founder set out to build while quietly succeeding at something nobody put on the original pitch deck. Most of those companies never get the second act. A handful, for reasons that are part timing and part attention, do. So the paradox from the opening still stands. The chewing gum, the jewelry counter, the messaging app, none of it was the plan. All of it was the accident someone paid enough attention to notice. Zoom out far enough, and almost every industry alive today is running on some founder's abandoned first idea, repurposed by necessity, kept alive by whoever was paying attention when it mattered. The businesses that survive long enough to matter are rarely the ones that executed the original plan perfectly. They are the ones that let it go. So maybe the real question is not whether your current idea is the right one. It is whether you are paying close enough attention to notice when it quietly turns into something else, If you stayed till the end, thanks for tuning in. My name is Joe, and this was Hindsight Capital.